The invitation that changed everything. The sun had just begun to rise over Los Angeles when Keanu Reeves stepped out of his quiet home in the hills, wearing a simple black t-shirt and jeans, holding a cup of black coffee in one hand. He wasn't used to mornings like this anymore, not after what he had lost, not after the silence that had followed him since that day 3 years ago when his sister passed. But today was different. Today, something was stirring in him, something old, something sacred. His phone buzzed. It was an email from a producer at a national television network. The subject line read, "Exclusive live panel discussion, faith and fame." The message was short, direct, and strange. "Keanu, we know you don't usually do these, but Morgan Freeman will be there. We're talking about something that matters, not gossip, not promotion, something real. If you come, it could mean everything." Keanu stared at the screen for a long time. Then he did something he hadn't done in a while. He whispered under his breath, "Maybe it's time." 2 days later, the studio lights were blinding as he stepped into the green room. The hallway outside was loud with movement, crew setting up lights, producers barking into headsets, interns carrying coffee trays with trembling hands. Keanu stood still in the middle of it, like a shadow in the noise. "You came," said a soft, familiar voice. Keanu turned. There was Morgan Freeman. His eyes were warm, lined with age and wisdom. But there was something curious in them too, something searching. "I almost didn't," Keanu replied. Morgan smiled gently. "But you did. And I think you know why." The show was called Truth Table, Conversations That Matter. It was broadcast live to millions. It wasn't the usual celebrity talk show. It was raw, deep, often unpredictable. Today's topic was, does faith still matter in a world of fame? The panel included a best-selling author who had left religion, a famous musician who had returned to God after addiction, Morgan Freeman, who had hosted documentaries on the divine, and now, to everyone's surprise, Keanu Reeves as the host. Sarah Bell welcomed them on air. The audience clapped. But it was when Keanu walked in that the room shifted. Some viewers had no idea he would be there. Others stared as if seeing a ghost. He hadn't done live TV in over 5 years. "Keanu," Sarah began after introductions, "you're known for being private, deeply respectful, spiritual, but never loud about it. Can I ask what brought you here today?" Keanu looked down at his hands for a moment. Then he nodded. "My sister," he said. "She passed away 3 years ago. She believed in Jesus. And before she died, she said something that stayed with me." The room grew quiet. She said, "You don't have to understand everything to believe in something. You just have to love." Keanu's voice didn't shake, but it was heavy. Every word dropped like stone into water. "I didn't know what to say to her. I just held her hand. And now I think I'm starting to understand." Morgan Freeman leaned forward. "Do you believe in Jesus?" he asked, not with challenge, but with deep curiosity. Keanu didn't blink. "I don't think I did, not in the way she did, not in the way most people talk about it. But the more I've been alone, the more I see pain in the world, and beauty too, the more I think, he's not just a story, he's a mirror." "A mirror," Sarah echoed. "Yeah," Keanu said quietly, "a mirror for how we're supposed to love, and how far we are from it." The author on the panel shifted uncomfortably. "But aren't we past needing ancient books to tell us how to be good?" Keanu turned to him gently. "Maybe, but if you've ever watched someone forgive someone who didn't deserve it, if you've ever seen someone break and still choose kindness, that's not ancient, that's now. And I've seen that kind of love in the eyes of a man who carried a cross, even if only in a dream." There was silence. Morgan Freeman blinked slowly. Then he said something no one expected. "I think you're right." The host looked surprised. "Morgan, you've always been more analytical. What are you feeling right now?" Morgan chuckled. "I've spoken to theologians, scientists, monks, but what Keanu just said, that love is a mirror, that hit me. Not because it's poetic, but because it's hard. It's easier to debate theology than to forgive someone who hurt you." He looked at Keanu. "When you spoke, I didn't just hear words. I felt like someone had finally put silence into language." In the control room, the director whispered, "This wasn't scripted. Let it play," the producer replied. Don't cut to commercial. Meanwhile, in the audience, a young woman named Anna was watching with tears in her eyes. Her father had died of cancer 2 weeks ago. She had been angry with God ever since. But hearing Keanu Reeves speak like that simple, quiet, honest something opened in her, not her mind, her heart. Back on stage, Sarah asked, "What would you say to someone watching this who doesn't believe anymore? Who's lost hope?" Keanu took a deep breath. You don't have to believe perfectly. Just begin by loving someone who's hurting. Sometimes love is the first prayer. And that's when Morgan Freeman did something no one expected. He stood up. The host tried to speak, but he raised a hand. Then Morgan walked across the stage, stood beside Keanu, and quietly placed a hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," he said, "for reminding us what faith really looks like." In that moment, the entire studio was silent, and something changed, not just on air, not just in the ratings, but in the hearts of millions watching. The phone calls that followed the next morning. The world woke up different. Clips from the live broadcast flooded social media. One clip in particular, the moment Morgan Freeman stood beside Keanu Reeves and thanked him, was shared over 4 million times in 12 hours. People didn't just watch it. They wept. They whispered. They talked again about things they hadn't spoken about in years: grace, kindness, faith. But Keanu, he was already walking alone along the shoreline, just as the sky turned gold. No bodyguards, no crowd, just the ocean and silence. His phone buzzed non-stop in his pocket, but he ignored it for a while, until he saw a name that made him stop walking. Pastor Elijah. Missed call. Pastor Elijah. Voicemail 1. Keanu had not spoken to that man in over 10 years. He stood still, wind in his hair, and pressed play. "Keanu," the voice began, warm and calm, "I saw what you said last night. I cried, son. I cried because you didn't preach, you didn't pretend. You just opened your wounds and let light shine through. If you're ready to talk, come home. We're still here. The door's open." Keanu's chest tightened. No one had said come home in years. Back in the city, the producers were shocked. Their show, usually pulling decent numbers, was now #1 across 4 countries. But it wasn't just numbers. People were writing in letters, emails, voice messages. A single mother wrote, "I saw the pain in his eyes. It looked like mine." A soldier wrote, "After what I did overseas, I thought God didn't want me. But Keanu's words told me maybe, just maybe, love still has room for me." A teenager wrote, "I was going to end my life. Then I watched the rerun. I stayed." One of the interns who worked on the set, a shy young man named Nico, confessed something no one expected. "After the show, I called my dad. We hadn't spoken in 4 years. I said sorry." He cried. Said he'd been waiting for that call forever. Morgan Freeman sat in his study that evening, staring at a candle on his desk. He wasn't a man of impulsive emotions. He had seen too much, heard too much. But something about Keanu's words had cracked open something old in him, something buried. He called the host of the show, Sarah Bell. "Let him speak again," he said. "You mean another episode?" she asked. "No," Morgan said. "Let him speak again. Not as a guest, not as a celebrity, just as a man, live, unedited. Do you think he'll agree?" Morgan smiled faintly. He already started something. Now he has to finish it. That night, Keanu sat alone in his small home, holding a photo of his sister. The house was quiet. Not a sound but the ticking clock on the wall. He lit a candle for her. And spoke out loud. "I don't know what you'd think of this, Lily. I just know I felt something yesterday. Like you were there. Like he was too." He looked up at the ceiling. Not to the light, to something beyond it. Double quotes, "God, if you're real, if you really are, like she said, use me. I'm not strong. I'm not wise. I've failed too much. But if you want, I'm yours." The candle flickered. And Keanu closed his eyes. The next morning, he called Pastor Elijah. "Can I come see you?" The voice on the other end smiled. The church doors never closed. The old church stood quiet under the morning sun. Not big, not fancy, just bricks and love and memory. Keanu hadn't stepped inside since before he lost her. The wooden door creaked as he entered. And there, at the end of the pew, stood Pastor Elijah, gray-haired now, slower. But his eyes hadn't changed. They still held truth. Keanu didn't speak at first. He just stood there, then fell to his knees. He didn't cry. The tears had already been shed in silence many nights before, but the weight of everything left in his soul poured out in quiet surrender. Pastor Elijah placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay to come back broken," he said. Jesus never asked for perfect people, just honest ones. After a long talk, the pastor gave Keanu a gift. It was a small leather book, worn, but strong. "It was your sister's," he said. Keanu ran his fingers over the cover. Inside, he saw her notes in the margins, short prayers, verses underlined with trembling hands, and one sentence circled. In red, "The greatest power in the world is love that never gives up." He closed the book slowly. "I think," he said softly, "I'm ready to speak again." The TV studio didn't expect the call when it came. Keanu wanted to speak again, not to sell anything, not to promote, not to debate. He wanted to read from the book, his sister's book. Sarah Bell was stunned when the network approved it. A 1-hour special. No commercials. No guests. Just Keanu Reeves. Live. Speaking from a quiet stage, with a single chair and a single candle. When they made the announcement, the internet exploded again. Fans, critics, believers, doubters, everyone wanted to hear what he had to say next. Morgan Freeman sent him a single message the night before. "You reminded the world that faith isn't noise, it's presence. Keep going." But something strange happened before the broadcast. One of the crew members, a man named Paul, who worked behind the scenes, approached Keanu quietly. He looked nervous. "Can I talk to you?" he asked. Keanu nodded. "When I was a kid," Paul said, "I was abused by someone in the church. I hated God for a long time. I never thought I'd believe again. But yesterday, when you said love is a mirror, I saw something. I saw the face of the man who hurt me, and I chose to forgive him." Keanu stared at him in silence. "I didn't want to, but I did, and it felt like fire left my chest." Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm proud of you," he said. "That's not weakness. That's what real power looks like." When the broadcast began, millions were watching. But it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Keanu walked in, lit a single candle, and sat. Then he opened the book, his sister's book. And began to speak. "This isn't a sermon. This isn't a performance. This is me, trying to find peace. And if you're hurting, maybe we can find it together." The broadcast they tried to stop the stage was almost empty. Just a chair, a candle, and Keanu Reeves sitting with a book in his hands. There was no background music, no studio claps, no flashy lights. He looked into the camera and simply said, "Thank you for being here." Millions were watching, some with open hearts, others with folded arms and skeptical eyes, but no one could look away. Keanu opened the little leather book again, his sister's book, and ran his fingers along the worn-out pages. Then he read aloud, "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It keeps no record of wrongs." He stopped for a moment. "My sister underlined that part," he said. "I didn't understand why, until the day she died. She forgave everyone who had ever hurt her, even the one person who never apologized. And when I asked her why, she said, 'Because I don't want to carry it into heaven.'" The camera zoomed in slightly. "I don't know if you believe in heaven," Keanu said, "but I do know that carrying pain makes life feel like hell." The network executives sat in the control room, watching every second. A man in a suit leaned forward. "How long is he planning to read from that book?" he asked sharply. The producer replied quietly. He said, "Until the hour ends. Can we cut to a commercial? Anything?" The producer shook his head. "No." He requested no ads. We agreed. The executive slammed his hand on the table. "Then who approved this?" Someone else replied, "You did, sir." The room fell silent. On air, Keanu turned the page. "There's a note here from my sister. It says, 'When I couldn't walk, Jesus carried me.'" He looked up again. "I don't know what you're carrying right now. Grief, guilt, anger, maybe shame. But if you're tired, I want you to hear this." He leaned forward. "You are not alone." In a small town in Georgia, A former addict named Marcus sat in his one-room apartment, trembling. He had just been released from prison. He had no family left. But something made him turn on the TV. He stared at the screen. Keanu's single quotes S voice reached into the hollow space of his chest. And for the first time in 15 years, Marcus cried. Back in the studio, the lighting operator whispered to a cameraman, "I don't know why this feels so different." "Because he's not acting," the cameraman replied. "He's bleeding." 25 minutes in, the show's official social media accounts exploded. Hundreds of thousands of comments. "This is the most honest thing I've ever seen on television. I'm not religious, but I haven't blinked once. Why is this breaking me apart inside? Keanu is speaking to my soul." But not everyone was happy. Some big media critics called the network, "This isn't neutral," one said. "This is preaching. He's pushing faith on people," another argued. "Are we a church now?" Others started pressuring advertisers. Within 30 minutes of airtime, 3 sponsors pulled out. But the network didn't stop the feed. Not yet. Because something else happened. The viewership doubled, then tripled. Within 45 minutes. The special had more live viewers than the Super Bowl. Keanu turned another page. "This part's hard," he said quietly. "My sister wrote this 2 weeks before she died. She said, 'I'm scared. But when I talk to Jesus, I feel like the fear becomes light, not gone, just easier to carry.'" He looked into the camera again. "I'm not here to convert you. I'm not here to debate you. I'm just here to tell you that if you feel heavy, you don't have to carry it alone." He paused. "Talk to him, even if you don't know how. Just whisper. Even if you're angry." A woman in her 60s named Evelyn was watching from a hospital bed. She had stage 4 cancer. Doctors had given her weeks. Her daughter had begged her to watch. She wasn't a churchgoer. Never had been. But now, as Keanu spoke, something inside her began to shift. Not her body, her soul. She reached for her daughter's hand and whispered, "I want to talk to him too." Back in the control room, a voice came through the earpiece of the main producer. "They want us to pull the plug." "Who?" "Board of directors. There's too much backlash. Too many headlines already forming." The producer looked at the screen. Keanu was now standing beside the chair. He held the book to his chest, and he said, "I know there are people watching who don't believe in God, who feel like the world forgot them, or worse, that God did." His voice softened. "But I don't think you're forgotten, and I don't think he ever stopped loving you." The producer took a deep breath, then unplugged his earpiece. "No one touches this feed," he said firmly. "Let the man finish." As the final 10 minutes approached, Keanu sat again. The candle was burning low. He closed the book and said, "I want to end with a prayer. Not a fancy one, just something simple. You don't have to close your eyes or fold your hands. Just listen." He bowed his head. "God, if anyone out there is hurting, help them feel your arms around them. If anyone feels forgotten, remind them they matter. And if anyone is angry, sad, or numb, show them that even in silence, you are near. Amen." He looked back into the camera. "Thank you for letting me speak." When the broadcast ended, there was no applause. Only stillness. Millions of people across cities and countries sat in silence. Some cried, some prayed, some just breathed for the first time in days. Afterward, the studio phone lines collapsed. Hundreds of thousands of calls. The host, Sarah Bell, walked into the green room and found Keanu sitting quietly, hands clasped, eyes closed. "You changed something tonight," she said. Keanu opened his eyes slowly. "No," he replied. "I think something changed me." As news articles exploded with headlines both praise and protest, Keanu quietly left the studio. Out the side door, no press, no interviews, but someone was waiting for him outside. An old woman. She walked up to him slowly. Her eyes were full. "I lost my son last year," she said softly. "I was angry at God. But tonight, you gave me a reason to believe again." Keanu said nothing. He just reached out and hugged her. A storm was coming. He didn't know it yet. But not everyone would be grateful for his message. Some would try to silence him. Some already had plans in motion. But none of that mattered now, because a seed had been planted, and it was growing. The backlash begins the morning after the special aired. Keanu Reeves was the #1 trending name on every platform across the globe. But it wasn't all praise. By sunrise, the storm had arrived. The headlines were everywhere. Keanu Reeves goes full preacher on live TV. Audiences divided. Celebrity crosses the line. Is this faith or manipulation? Keanu sparks nationwide debate. Where does Hollywood draw the line? News anchors argued. Opinion pieces dropped. By the hour, hashtags trended both for and against him. Some called him brave. Some called him dangerous. Some simply said he had gone too far. Inside the boardroom of the network, tension cracked like glass. An emergency meeting had been called. We lost from major advertisers in the last 8 hours, one executive shouted. But we gained 9 new ones, the marketing lead replied. And viewership is up by 300%. The room went quiet until the chairman, a tall man with gray hair and a heavy voice, spoke. This is bigger than numbers, he said. People are angry. We're getting threats. Religious groups want to praise us. Activist groups wanted to sue. U.S., half the country wants more. The other half wants blood. He stared down at the table. We have to decide. Was this a what-I'm thing? Or are we letting him continue? No one answered. But everyone looked afraid. Meanwhile, Keanu sat at a small diner near the edge of the city. No suit, no hat, no disguise. Just black jeans, an old hoodie, and eyes that looked tired but calm. He sipped his coffee in silence as a woman approached him. She was a waitress, maybe 35. Eyes red like she hadn't slept. I saw your show, she whispered. My son. He tried to end his life 2 weeks ago. He's only 16. But he watched you. And this morning he told me, I want to try again. Keanu didn't speak. He simply stood up and hugged her. They didn't say anything for a long time. Because sometimes silence says more than words. But not all messages were kind. Back at his home, his team filtered emails and letters. Some were cruel. Keep your Jesus talk to yourself. You're not a preacher. Stick to movies. Next time you go live, we'll make sure you don't finish. One message had no name, no return address. Just one line. You're being watched. Choose wisely. His manager, Jules, called him. Keanu, I need to know what you want to do. The studio wants a meeting. Half of Hollywood's either calling you a saint or a lunatic. Keanu replied softly. I didn't say anything for them. I said it for the people who needed it. I know. But this is a mess. So be it. Pastor Elijah came to visit that evening. He brought food, soup and bread. They sat by the fire, quiet at first. Then the old pastor said, You know they're going to come after you, right? Maybe not with guns, but with pressure. Silence is what they want. Keanu looked at the flames. I didn't ask to be loud, he said. But when you hear something true inside you, you can't unhear it. And if people are drowning, I can't pretend I don't see them. Pastor Elijah smiled. Then speak. Just don't let pride take the wheel. I won't, Keanu whispered. I'm not doing this to be seen. The next morning, he received a letter. An invitation. Private summit on ethics in media. New York City. Attendance requested. The names on the list were powerful. Media owners, tech leaders, politicians. Keanu didn't usually attend events like this. But something in his gut told him this one was different. It wasn't a request. It was a warning. In New York, the summit took place inside a grand old hall with marble floors and gold fixtures. It looked more like a courtroom than a conference. Keanu walked in alone. Dozens of eyes turned toward him. Some curious, some cold. A moderator welcomed him to the panel. Mr. Reeves, she said politely, your recent appearance has caused significant reactions. Do you feel responsible for how people responded? He smiled gently. No, he said, but I feel responsible for what I say, and I chose love. A man in a gray suit leaned forward. You promoted faith on a platform meant for entertainment. That's not neutral. It's dangerous. Keanu looked at him calmly. So love is dangerous now? Faith divides people, the man replied. We need unity, not old books and invisible gods. Keanu's voice didn't rise. Faith doesn't divide people. Fear does. And right now, Too many people are afraid of something they don't understand. A woman on the panel, sharp-eyed and precise, asked, "Do you plan to use more public platforms to speak about Jesus?" Keanu paused, then answered, "Only if I feel called to." After the summit, he received another message. This one, handwritten, no return name. "You're waking people up. Don't stop. Ever." Inside the envelope was a photo. His sister. As a child. He had never seen that photo before. Later that week, Sarah Bell invited him back on her show. But this time, she wanted something different. Not a reading, she said. A conversation about what happens after faith begins. Keanu agreed. But on one condition. Let it be live, again, and let people call in. On the night of the broadcast, the phone lines opened, and something remarkable happened. The first caller was a former imam from Morocco who said, "I never thought I'd find comfort in a Hollywood actor, but you reminded me that God is still present, even in places we don't expect." The next caller was a 13-year-old girl who whispered, "I think God used your voice to reach my heart." Then a man with a trembling voice said, "I was going to leave everything behind tonight, but I saw your special, and now I want to start over." Call after call. Tears. Confessions. Hope. And Keanu just listened. Sometimes he spoke. Sometimes he just breathed with them. But each person felt seen. Heard. Loved. Behind the scenes, executives scrambled. Some wanted to cancel future airings. Others wanted to turn Keanu's story into a franchise. But none of it mattered to him. Because for the first time in his life, he wasn't following fame. He was following peace. At the end of the episode, Sarah asked one final question. "Keanu, what do you hope people remember about all this when the noise fades?" He looked at her, then at the camera, that someone loved them, even when they thought no one did. He stood up, and that someone still does. But as he walked off the stage that night, he was unaware. A powerful group of people had already made a decision. They were going to stop him by any means necessary. The silent war. Keanu Reeves had never cared about power. But now, without trying, he had it. And some people feared that. After his second live show, a secret meeting was held in a glass-walled skyscraper in New York. The attendees were not actors or producers. They were the ones who owned the screens, the papers, the voices the world listened to. They sat in silence until one man spoke. "We cannot allow a single actor, no matter how famous, to shape the conversation like this," he said coldly. "He's not following the script. He's pulling people away from the narratives we control." We tried reaching out quietly. A woman added, "He refuses interviews. He doesn't want to play the game. Then we make him irrelevant," another voice suggested. "If that doesn't work," the first man said, "we shut him down permanently." Keanu had no idea that such conversations were taking place. He was sitting alone in a small studio apartment he rented downtown, somewhere quiet, away from noise. He kept life simple: black coffee, a notebook, and an old guitar leaning against the wall. He wasn't thinking about his fame. He wasn't thinking about critics. He was thinking about people. Like Marcus, the former addict who wrote him a letter saying he was sober now because of that first broadcast. Like Evelyn, the woman with stage 4 cancer, who sent a video saying she had found peace even in her pain. Like the single mother who said her son now smiled again. Those stories made every attack worth it. One night, as he walked home after buying groceries, a black SUV slowed beside him. The window rolled down. "Mr. Reeves," a man in a suit said, "we need to talk." Keanu didn't stop walking. "About what?" he asked calmly. "About your recent influence." The man replied, "You're stirring people up. People we don't want stirred." Keanu turned, his eyes sharp but quiet. "If you have a problem with kindness," he said, "that's your problem, not mine." The man's face darkened. "Watch yourself. There are rules to this game." Keanu tilted his head. "Maybe I'm not playing your game." Then he walked away. The threats didn't stop. His team received calls warning them to cancel any future appearances. Some media outlets started running stories to smear him, calling him unstable, suggesting his grief had broken his mind. One Outlet falsely claimed he had joined a radical group spreading religious propaganda. But the truth was stronger than lies. Every time they attacked him, more people came to his side. They didn't see a celebrity anymore. They saw a man who spoke with no agenda, no greed, no noise. And that scared the powerful. Morgan Freeman called him one evening. "You're making waves." Morgan said, "I'm not trying to." Keanu replied softly, "I know, and that's why it's working. But you need to be careful. There are people who don't like losing control." Keanu was silent for a moment. "What should I do?" he asked. "Don't stop," Morgan said simply. "But don't do it alone. Even Jesus had people walking beside him." That night, Keanu wrote a letter to Sarah Bell, the host of Truth Table. "If I go live again," he wrote, "I want it to be with people, not just me on a stage. Real people, their stories, their pain, their hope, because this isn't about me, it's about all of us." Sarah agreed instantly. But the network didn't. They said no. "Why not?" Sarah asked in a heated meeting. "This is the highest-rated show in the country right now." "Because it's risky," the executive said. "Live calls are one thing, but an open panel with ordinary people. What if someone says something we can't control? What if it turns into a sermon? We can't take that chance." Sarah leaned forward. "Maybe the problem is you're trying too hard to control everything. Maybe people need something real." The room went silent. Keanu found out about the refusal later that day. He sat in the corner of a quiet cafe when Sarah told him. He didn't get angry. He simply smiled. "Then we'll do it ourselves," he said. The next week, Keanu and Sarah rented a small community hall in downtown Los Angeles. No cameras, no lights, no big network. They invited 100 people, strangers, people with stories of pain, loss, and hope. When Keanu stepped onto the small wooden stage, there was no applause. Just silence. He looked out at the faces, old, young, broken, healing. "I don't have answers," he said. "I only have what I've learned. That love, when it's real, heals more than any speech or rule ever could." And then, one by one, people stood up to share. A young woman who had survived domestic abuse. An old man who had lost his wife but still left flowers on her grave every morning. A teenager who said he hadn't felt heard until this moment. Keanu listened to every word. And when it ended, no one left right away. They stayed, talking, hugging, crying. It wasn't a show. It was something deeper. The next morning, photos from that night leaked online. Not staged, not posed, just raw, real moments of humanity. And those photos went viral. "This is the real Keanu," one headline read. "Not a celebrity, a human." But this new wave of love only made the powerful more determined to silence him. A week later, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. "You need to stop these gatherings," a cold voice said. "You don't understand the forces you're stirring." "Then help me understand," Keanu replied. "You're making people think for themselves." The voice said, "And that scares us. Stop now, or you'll regret it." Keanu's jaw tightened. "If love scares you," he said, "you should be scared." Then he hung up. But that same day, something unexpected happened. Keanu got a call from Morgan Freeman. "You're not going to believe this," Morgan said, his voice low. "The network caved. They want one final live broadcast. No filters, no commercials. They want you and me together. Prime time." Keanu paused. Why the change of heart? Because they realize they can't stop this wave. Morgan replied, "They're hoping to control it instead. But we won't let them." That night, Keanu stood by his window, looking out at the city lights. He could feel the tension in the air. He wasn't just telling stories anymore. He was fighting something invisible, something bigger than fame or media. He didn't know what the final broadcast would bring, but he knew one thing. He couldn't turn back now. The moment the world stood still, it was the most anticipated live broadcast in years. No actors were promoting a movie. No politicians were debating policy. No products were being sold. Just two men, Keanu Reeves and Morgan Freeman, and a promise. One night, 1 hour, one message that could change everything. The studio was packed, not with an audience, but with people behind cameras, producers, technicians, security guards. They all stood quietly, as if something sacred was about to happen. Even the usually loud director whispered, "We're living 10. Keanu stood backstage, breathing slow. He wore the same thing he always wore. No designer suit, just a plain black shirt and jeans. Beside him, Morgan Freeman stood calm, eyes closed, whispering a prayer. Then the light above the door turned green. Live. The set was simple. 2 chairs, a candle between them, and a small wooden cross carved from dark wood, standing quietly behind. Then no one had put it there for decoration. Keanu had brought it himself, his sister's cross. The host, Sarah Bell, welcomed viewers with a soft voice. "Thank you for joining us," she said. "Tonight is not scripted. There are no ads, no edits, just truth." She turned to the two men. "Keanu, Morgan, the world is listening." Keanu looked straight into the camera. His voice was low, steady. "I'm not here to be a hero. I'm not here to lead a movement. I'm just a man who lost someone he loved and found something sacred in the silence that followed." He turned to Morgan. "What do you believe?" Morgan, the older man, didn't hesitate. "I believe God never left," he said. "We just stopped listening." Keanu nodded. Then he reached into his pocket. He pulled out a folded paper yellowed at the edges. "This was the last note my sister wrote before she died," he said. "I've never read it out loud until now." He opened it slowly. Then he read, "If love is the only thing I have left, then I still have everything. And if Jesus is waiting on the other side, then I'm not afraid." The entire studio went silent. Cameras kept rolling, but no one moved. Morgan wiped his eyes. "I've narrated 1,000 stories," he said quietly, "but none as powerful as the one you just told." Keanu looked down. "She taught me that faith isn't noise, it's love that keeps going, even when there's nothing left." Sarah turned to him. "Keanu, people want to believe, but many are hurt, angry, tired. They've seen too much pain. What do you say to them?" Keanu paused, then leaned forward. "I say, I see you, and more importantly, he sees you. Jesus didn't promise life would be easy. He promised we'd never walk alone, and that matters." He held up the little wooden cross. "This was carved by my sister. She made it in the hospital. She said it helped her breathe." Calls started coming in. The first caller, a young man named Josh, said, "I've been an atheist for 10 years, but I don't know what just happened. I'm shaking. I feel something real." The next caller was a woman with a heavy voice. "My daughter passed away last year. I cursed God. I cursed everything. But tonight, I feel like she's telling me to forgive." Then a soft male voice spoke. "I was the man who threatened you, Keanu. I said I'd shut you down, but your grace, it broke me. I'm sorry." Keanu closed his eyes. Then he said, "You're forgiven. Go be light to someone else now." And then it happened. A sound engineer backstage collapsed. A heart attack. Chaos erupted behind the scenes. But before the feed could be cut, Keanu stood up and ran off stage. He dropped to his knees beside the man. His name was Leo. Keanu placed his hands on his chest. "Call 911, someone yelled. But Keanu closed his eyes and whispered, "Jesus, if you're here, let him stay." The cameras didn't mean to capture it, but they did. Millions watched as Keanu pressed his hand over Leo's heart and said, "Breathe, brother, breathe." Seconds later, Leo gasped. He coughed. And opened his eyes. The paramedics rushed in minutes later. "What happened?" one asked, stunned. "We don't know," said the floor manager, "but he's alive." Morgan walked over slowly and looked at the camera. "You wanted a miracle?" he said. "You just saw one." Social media exploded. Did Keanu save a man's life on live TV? The prayer that brought him back? Coincidence or something more? But those who were there knew the truth. It wasn't drama. It wasn't luck. It was something deeper, something holy. When the dust settled and Leo was taken safely to the hospital, Keanu came back to the chair. He sat down slowly. The candle still flickered beside him. Then he whispered into the mic, "God isn't finished with us yet." 3 days later, Leo walked out of the hospital with no major damage, and the doctor said, "I don't know how he survived, but something or someone gave him back his breath." Keanu disappeared from the spotlight for a while. After that, he went back to the hills. Back to quiet. Back to long walks and candles and letters he never sent. But his voice stayed. With people in churches and cafes, in prisons and schools, in hospitals and broken homes. People started saying things like, "If Keanu can find peace after pain, maybe I can too. If love is still real, maybe I'm not lost." Morgan Freeman gave one final interview. He was asked, "What do you think Keanu really did?" He smiled and said, "He reminded us that truth doesn't need a microphone. It just needs a heart that won't give up." As for Keanu, one day, years later, a young boy found him sitting on a bench in a park. The boy said, "Are you the man who talks about Jesus?" Keanu smiled gently and replied, "Sometimes, but he's the one who talks about you every day."